So what we're working on today is we're going to start with 9.1, and this is basically all about parabolas. And what we're going to be asking you to do for parabolas is to find the vertex, line of symmetry, and sketch. Now, there are other parts of parabolas that if you go into advanced math, you may be asked to find, okay? Something called the focus and the directrix. We are not going to deal with that just yet. I'm going to leave that for advanced math. Okay, so what we're starting with today is finding vertex, line of symmetry, and sketching. This is, for this objective, is all review. Okay, we have done all of this before in first semester. So for example number 1, so hopefully that means that you kind of remember this, okay? Y equals 1/2 times x plus 3, quantity squared, so that means close the parentheses and square that, minus 1. Y equals 1/2, parentheses, x plus 3 squared minus 1. So just as a little bit of review, and we are going to, I'm asking you to find line of symmetry. I'm also asking you to find the coordinates of the vertex. And finally, to sketch. No, I'm not asking you for everything because I'm not making you do focus and directrix.
Well, everything that's on the top.
It's not that bad. So, first thing you need to know is, I don't know if you remember, but there are 2 different forms that we write parabolas in. Okay, the first one is called descriptive form. Descriptive form is generally what we prefer. Okay, descriptive form is also called vertex form. Okay, and descriptive form is when a parabola is written as y equals a in parentheses x minus h squared plus k. That is called descriptive or vertex form. Now, if you remember correctly, what does this a value tell you? Okay, it tells you what direction it's opening. Okay, what direction it opens. And it also tells you what? How wide, the width. Okay, the width. So it could be fat, skinny, or normal. Okay? What does this what does the h tell you? What do you get from the parentheses? Do you remember? You actually get the line of symmetry. Okay? The line of symmetry is always as x equals h. So you change whatever's in the parentheses and change its sign. And then the last part comes from h and k. Okay, h and k give you your vertex. If you remember correctly, we change it and keep it. Okay, so change and keep. So if I look at the example I gave you, y equals 1/2 times x plus 3 squared minus 1. What does this 1/2 tell us? Is it going up or down? Up. This is opening up. Okay, opens up. And fractions are what? Fat, skinny, or normal? Fractions are fat. Okay, fractions are fat. Okay, normal is when it's a 1. Any other whole number tells you it's skinny. Okay, so this is a fraction, so it is fat. Can you remember it all? How do I get the line of symmetry from here?
3.
Now remember, it's a line of symmetry, so it must be written as what? An x equals equation. X equals line, and I change this. So if you change that sign, you should get x equals -3 as your line of symmetry. And then finally, the last portion here is to get your vertex. Okay, remember I changed the sign and keep the sign. So my vertex will be at -3, -1. -3, -1. So if you draw this, if we sketch this now, okay, line of symmetry is that x equals -3. If you don't want to put the dash marks, that's fine, but this must be labeled. Okay, remember, it's a line, so it's an x equals -3 line. I don't want you to just label just the axis. Okay, you have to write a line, so x equals -3. And if you remember correctly, the line of symmetry, it's just like the fold line. Okay, so it's the center line. Then our vertex is going to be at -3, -1. So over 3, down 1. Again, I want you to label this, so -3, -1. And then finally, I want you to sketch this, and we decided that this is opening up, and it is fat. So it is an upward-facing fat parabola. That is what we're looking for this first objective. I'm just wanting you to find line of symmetry, vertex, and to sketch. Any questions on how I did that?
It doesn't matter how fat it is.
Just want it to be fat. Make it relatively fat. Okay, let's try another one. I'm kind of going out of order, so I'm not quite sure. I think there's 4. Number 2. Okay, for number 2. These should be fairly simple, fairly easy for you because these are review. Okay, so -2 times x minus 4 quantity squared plus 1. And again, I first want you to find line of symmetry. Remember, it's a line. Find vertex, or the coordinates of vertex, and then sketch. So if you have an initial -2 times x minus 4 squared plus 1, what does this -2 tell you? It will be facing down, and is it fat, skinny, or normal? This is skinny, right? Fractions are fat, whole numbers are skinny, ones are normal. Normal just means in between fat and skinny, basically. Okay, what can you tell me about my line of symmetry? Try again. X equals 4. We can't just say 4. You have to write it as a line. So it's an x equals equation. X equals 4. And then finally, my vertex comes from the parentheses and the end. My vertex will be what? +4, +1. So change the sign, keep the sign. Then if you make just a small sketch of this, my line of symmetry is at x equals 4. So go over 4, we're going to put our line. Make sure it's labeled, please, as an x equals equation. Vertex will be over 4 up 1. Remember that vertex always has to be on the line of symmetry. If it's not, then you made a mistake somewhere. And then finally we decided that this was facing down, and it was skinny. Relatively skinny. Okay, now technically, if we wanted to, I could ask you to find the x-intercepts, so where it crosses the x-axis. I could ask you to find the y-intercept as well. Okay, we're not going to go into that much depth on this unit. Okay, on our other parabola unit, when we did these before, I might have asked you to find x and y intercepts. These ones I will not. Okay, it's not a super big deal. Okay, 2 more. Number 3. How about now if I give you the equation y equals x squared plus 8x plus 7. Y equals x squared plus 8x plus 7. And again, I want you to find line of symmetry. Find the vertex. And sketch. Now, I told you earlier that this was in what kind of form? What's this called? Descriptive form. Does anyone remember what this form is? Non-descriptive form. This is called standard form. Okay? A standard form. Okay? Standard form is always y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. That's what's considered standard form. Okay? We still know the same thing about the a values. Okay, so your a value still tells you if it's going to go up or down, if it's fat, skinny, or normal. Okay? Does anyone remember, how do we find line of symmetry in a standard form parabola? Close. Like, line of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. So if I look at this, let's find my line of symmetry. It's going to be negative. What's my b value? 8. Negative 8 over 2 times what's my a value? 1. So negative 8 over 2 gives you a value of negative 4. Remember, write this as an equation. So x equals negative 4 is your line of symmetry. Okay, my line of symmetry is that x equals negative 4. Anyone remember, how do I find vertex? How do I find the vertex? I already have the x portion of the vertex. How do I find y?
C.
No, it's not the c. Find the vertex by plugging in. Okay? We already know the x part, so we're going to plug in to find the y part. So if you plug that in, that's going to give you y equals negative 4 squared plus 8 times negative 4 plus 7. So if I work this out, what's negative 4 squared? 16. 8 times negative 4 is minus 32. And then plus the 7. So we always want to move left to right. 16 minus 32 gives you negative 16 plus 7. So your y value will be what? Negative 9. So what's my vertex going to be?
Negative 9, negative 4.
Negative 4, negative 9. Okay, it's always x then y. Now I can sketch. Okay, now I can sketch. So my line of symmetry was at x equals negative 4. Now, you don't have to put in those little dash marks if you don't want to. You can just label. And if you decide that's where negative 4 is, that's fine as long as it's labeled. Then my vertex is at negative 4, negative 9. So I'm going to say that's my vertex point. If you label it, that's just fine. Now, what does this tell you? Okay, what do I know about this a value? Does it tell me it's going up or down?
Up.
This is opening up. And is it fat, skinny, or normal?
Normal.
This is normal. So if there's nothing there, it's really an invisible 1, which tells you it is a normal parabola. So it's not fat, it's not skinny, it's just normal. Kind of nondescript.
You're going really fast.
This is review, so. Questions so far? Okay. We're going to do one more. Okay. Last one for number 4. Again, I want you to sketch and find those parts of y equals negative 1/2 x squared. Okay, so again, I want you to find line of symmetry, find the vertex coordinates, and sketch. So find line of symmetry, find vertex, and sketch. Technically, what form is this in right now? Is this descriptive or standard form? It's kind of both, okay? Technically, it's written in standard form, but it's easy to change it to be in descriptive form, okay? This can easily be changed or easily rewritten as 1/2. What's inside those parentheses with the x?
X plus 1.
Can you just add 1 to anything?
0.
No. You can add a 0. And what can I add to the end? A 0. So you could leave it in this form, okay? And you could use your vertex. You could say x equals negative b over 2a. Then you could plug back in to find the y coordinate. Or you can change it, rewrite it a little bit, and change it into this form. This form tells us what about my line of symmetry?
0.
X equals 0, right? Line of symmetry is that x equals 0. What do I know about my vertex? Vertex is 0, 0. And what does this a value tell me? Does it face up or down?
Down.
Down, and is it fat, skinny, or normal?
Fat.
Down and fat, right. So if I make a simple sketch, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but do the best you can. Okay, line of symmetry is that x equals 0. You just kind of do these little hash marks sideways. For your line of symmetry, it does still need to be labeled. Vertex is at 0, 0. Does still need to be labeled. And then we said this was facing down, and it was fat. And that's it. Any questions? Okay, homework. for this is going to be worksheet 1, and I will give you a handout today. Worksheet 1, you're doing 1 through 16, you're doing the evens. Okay, you're doing the evens. Now, just as a side note, because it is on here, and eventually you will need to know this, how can you tell, this is number 16 on your worksheet, which of the following is a parabola here? Which of those is a parabola?
C.
It should be C. Okay, does anyone know what kind of an equation is this? What kind of shape does that make?
A line.
That's a line, right? Okay, anything with just a y and just an x, no exponents, that's a line. Anyone know what a square and a square make? Do you have 2 squares? We're gonna get to these. Okay, we're gonna get to these. These are, depending upon coefficients, it could either be an ellipse or a circle. Okay, depending on the coefficients. We are going to get there. I've not shown you that stuff yet. It is actually an ellipse, yes.
What is an ellipse?
What is an ellipse? It's like an egg shape.
Like an oval.
They're like ovals. They're kind of like, they're like ovals, yeah. Okay, for C, if you have one, listen, if you have one square, it's automatically going to be a parabola, okay? If you have a cubic, okay, if you have a third power, anyone know what kind of shape that makes?
Cube.
Triangle.
Well, it doesn't make a cube, okay, but we call that a cubic equation. This would make a picture that kind of looks like that. Oh, sorry, that's a horrible drawing, sorry.
An S.
They kind of make S's, okay, a little bit.
We did that before, didn't we?
You do have to recognize that on your STAR test. A cubic equation makes kind of an S, excuse me, kind of like that. Okay, what does that last one make?
I don't know. What was it?
The last one, sorry, drop this paper down here. The last one is a square root. Okay, something like y equals 2 root x. Does anyone know what that makes? It makes half of a parabola. It does. Okay, it makes a half of a parabola. Okay, we will not get to cubics or these like root graphs. Those are more of like, yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. Okay, it's like a parabola that stops. Okay, you will get to those in advanced math and calculus if you go that far. Okay, anyone have questions? Okay, so that's your homework.